Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 56, The Party's Over. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. Cece and Maxwell are about to take a weekend trip to Boston. While Maxwell intends to focus strictly on business, Cece wants to use the trip as an opportunity to shout the British are coming. Niles saves Maxwell by claiming that Cece was disappointed that the children weren't going on the trip, and Maxwell takes the bait. Maggie does not want to go because she has concert tickets on Saturday night. Per usual, Maggie relies on Fran to manipulate Maxwell to get what she wants. Meanwhile, Fran and Val are worried that they're never going to meet anyone and thus will never be able to fulfill their lifelong dreams of buying double burial plots. They decide to host their own singles party at Benny's Clam Bar. After Maxwell et al. Leave, Maggie is excited about having the house to herself so she can do whatever she wants, whenever she wants, and thinks she now understands why Fran stays single. Val then arrives with horrible news. Benny's Clam Bar burned down in a fire, and they need to find a new venue for their singles party. Fran immediately rejects the notion of hosting at the Sheffield home, but quickly reconsiders when Maggie points out that Maxwell technically only told her not to throw any parties in his absence. Cut to the party, 100 guys and 7 women in the Sheffield home. While it seems Niles is going to get lucky, Fran is striking out until she meets Jeff. But it turns out Jeff's a cop who arrests her for conducting business in a residential house without a license, and she spends the night in jail. Maxwell gets home before Fran does, and he blames Maggie for the party. Maggie takes the blame because she doesn't want Fran to get fired. Fran goes to her arraignment where her lawyer, Uncle Manny, mounts a comical, albeit nonsensical defense, and Maxwell ends up with a $500 fine for the party. Bernadette, do you want to add anything?
No, that was very thorough.
Thank you. I also appreciated you laughing when I quoted, "Shout the British are coming."
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, the most memorable line in this episode.
Yep.
All right. Would you like to take us to scene 1?
Yes. So we open this episode in the Sheffield living room. Cece is kind of near that circular table in the foyer, spritzing on some perfume. She's excited about going away the weekend to Boston, and she calls it a weekend getaway. And as she's spritzing, she first spritzes her, wrist, but then she starts spritzing a lot around her décolletage, if that's how you
Yes.
pronounce it. And
Or as Sylvia would put it, décolletessen.
yeah. And so, but Maxwell's right there, and he's like, "It's a business trip, Cece. And she understands that, but she needs to go get a wax. I mean, facts."
Yep.
And again, as a child, we wouldn't really get that.
Nope.
Um, and again, Niles is kind of hovering around. He's there, and he kind of does his Niles thing. But first, I'm trying to.
He
I have
reassures Maxwell that
Yes.
you'll be right near Salem. They know
Yes,
how to take care of her kind there.
Yes. And then it's it's Niles who does that famous line as well, right?
Yes.
Because
Because Maxwell's concerned and he
yes,
doesn't exactly know what to say. He's like, Niles, you don't think she wants to go to Boston to, and that's when Niles jumps in.
yes, yes, to shout the British are coming. And
Exactly.
and that's when he kind of goes, "Oh, it's such a shame the children can't go." And Maxwell, first of all, before I go on, I just want to comment, this is the first time, well, not the first time, but this is one of the rare instances where Maxwell kind of feels like something is up with Cece, like she's
Uh-huh.
excited, whereas in the past we've seen him just be like very oblivious.
Yep.
But again, Niles slips in with, "Oh, shame the children can't go,"
That Cece was saying that.
Yes. And Maxwell again, like, somehow just accepts that, you know, and
Understandably.
he's like, "Oh, well, the hotel has only has 2 rooms, you know." yeah, do you think Miss Babcock would mind sharing? Mind? You know what she always said, I don't care who I sleep with. That's what Niall says
Right.
as to what Cece would say in such situation. So again, Niles is being Niles. He's kind of doing everything he can to ruin Cece's time.
Yes.
Uh, so it- again, what's interesting here is that we do not then go into the opening credits as we typically do. Instead, we now switch to the kitchen. Debbie, do you want to take over or do you have anything to add before we do?
I would just, the only thing I would add is that, Maxwell clearly clings to this idea that Niles is fabricating, and he immediately starts saying, well, real at first he's like, really? And he's like, well, it would be very educational for the kids to go to
Mm,
Boston. And so he like comes up with his own rationale as well. Like,
yeah.
this is going to work for everybody. Great.
Yeah. So do you think he's like subconsciously or consciously trying to build a buffer
Yes,
between himself and
absolutely.
Cece? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Like, if you were in his position, wouldn't you also, after the way Cece was just behaving, spritzing herself and going to get a wax? Like,
Mm-hmm.
he's also trying to like, because he's also sort of in an odd position because like he and Cece work together, and so he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to like ruin their professional relationship. So like,
Mm-hmm.
which is probably why he doesn't outright say, Cece, I'm not interested in you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's all I wanted to add. So I'll take us into the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
We go into the kitchen and we have Fran and Val there, and they have this giant tub of ice cream between them. They're kind of standing, um, like, I don't like the kitchen island,
Mm-hmm.
and they're complaining, and Val's complaining about how I'm never going to meet anybody. I'm never going to fulfill my dream of buying double burial plots. And like that catches Fran's attention. Meanwhile, they're also like adding to their giant tub of ice cream with like whipped cream and other accoutrements. And Fran's like, "That's your dream, Val? That's my dream too. No wonder we're best friends."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Val asks her, "Are we being too particular? Maybe we should lower our standards." And Fran doesn't take well to that suggestion. Lower our standards, Val. We're already down to mammal. All I want is a nice, cute guy with a couple of bucks. And at that point, who walks in but a nice, cute guy with a couple bucks? Brighton.
Ugh.
And well, and Fran says to him, "Have you ever seen Harold and Maude?"
Mm-hmm.
And like that's basically the scene in a nutshell. Do you have anything you want to add?
Well, after she asks him that and kind of like takes a second to look at him, then she's like, ah, never mind. Once you've seen a guy in his Batman pajamas, there's no mystery left.
Oh, fair. Yeah.
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 So not too crazy on that ending.
Fair.
That second of contemplation. Because we'll
He
talk
isn't.
about Harold and Maude later.
We will. But I mean, Brighton does fit their definition of a nice, cute guy with a couple of bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think their standards are too low.
Except
Maybe
mine
applied
is
funny.
minor.
Well, yeah, no. I'm not saying she's gonna marry him. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but like they're like objective criteria of mammal, nice, cute guy, and a couple of bucks. Those seem like reasonable standards. It's not like they're looking for,
Mhm. I would
guy with
just add adult.
fair, fair. That would be appropriate. I agree.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Would you like to take us to scene 3? We're still in the kitchen.
Still in the kitchen. Yep. So after the opening credits, we're still back in the kitchen where Val and Fran are still going away at that large tub of ice cream. And, they start talking, and it's brought up what if they have their own singles party and charge $20 a head? And, they're kind of thinking about where that party would take place. And I believe it's Fran who like suggests the back room at Benny's Clam Bar.
Yes.
And Val kind of has objections because it's so dark and stuff. So Fran goes over to the light and dims it. And she asks Val, how old do I look? And Val's like, well, I can't really tell, because it's dark. And
Hmm.
so Fran's like, book it, Val.
Exactly.
So in then walks in Maggie and Maxwell, and they're in the middle of a conversation. obviously Maxwell has told Maggie about his plans to take the kids with him to Boston, and Maggie's opposed to this because she has concert tickets to Nine Inch Nails. And when she says Nine Inch Nails, Fran kind of perks up and is like, "Oh, is Barbara on tour?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Maggie starts explaining, I'm 16 years old, I can take care of myself. But then, of course, with the aside of Niles can still make stuff for me, right?
Right.
Um, and Fran does what Fran does best, which is manipulate Maxwell because, of course, Maxwell's like, no, no, no. But then Fran jumps in. Oh, why he doesn't want you to stay home? Because it makes him feel old.
Mm-hmm.
know, he's he feels unneeded and useless. He has that gray patch and he wakes up in the morning feeling stiff. And, at this point, Maxwell cuts her off and says, Margaret, the house is yours for the weekend. And of course, Maggie, as she's leaving, it's like, thank you, friend, you're a goddess.
Exactly.
And then, but Maxwell's still kind of indignant at the suggestion that he feels old. And so he tells Fran, nothing is stiff when I wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and not realizing what he's saying. And so, of course, Fran responds with, I rest my case.
Exactly.
Uh,
Something
yeah,
else we wouldn't know.
nope, yep, would not have caught that as a child.
Nope.
Is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I
Okay,
got
move
nothing.
to the living room.
So we're in the living room, and Maggie's clearly helping Fran out with the like RSVPs for the singles party. And she looks at one. She's like, "Oh, this one sounds perfect for you." Oh no, wait, he's looking for a Catholic girl. And Fran takes it from her. Oh, great, he's Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Cece comes in and she says to Niles to keep an eye on her bags. And so he does and says, all right, just tell me when to stop. He's not looking at her suitcases, which are outside in on the porch. He's staring under her eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, I think, if this is the only time, if not one of the only times, if not the only time that we see Niles wearing suspenders and not wearing a jacket.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Cece grabs one, takes the pencil from behind her ear again when she never has a pencil behind her ear, and sticks it, pulls back one of his suspenders with the pencil. And she says, now. And he's like, sorry. And she's like, so am I. She removes the pencil and just lets the suspender slap him on the chest.
Mm-hmm.
And she's clearly in a gleeful mood. Can
Oh,
this
yeah.
day get any better? Oh, I guess it can. I'll be spending the entire weekend alone with Maxwell in Boston. Well, Niles didn't miss a beat. I'm sorry, but we have some lovely consolation prizes for you. And, the camera pans and we see Brighton, Grace, and Maxwell coming down the staircase. And Cece realizes, oh, you're bringing the children on the trip. And Maxwell's like, oh, it was very sweet of you to think of them. Niles told me it was all your idea. And Niles says, don't thank me, and quickly removes the suspenders from his shoulders
Mm-hmm.
because he knows what's going to happen.
Yep.
And, Brighton is complaining that he doesn't want to sit next to Gracie on the plane because Gracie always throws up. And Gracie says, I won't throw up as long as I don't eat anything. And Niles, in his very Niles way, says, well, in case you get peckish, I packed you a sandwich, and hands her a bag with her lunch in it. Egg salad. And he says to Cece, it'll go lovely with your blazer.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maggie and Fran and everyone's like now in the foyer, and Maggie's saying goodbye, and Maxwell's reminding her that he's trusting her to behave herself, no wild parties. And she does the dutiful daughter thing. Yes, I know, of course. I love you. I'll miss you. And then he's like, just as he's like standing outside the door, he starts to say, this is the first time, and she slams the door. She doesn't need to hear the rest of his sentence. Doesn't matter. And
Mm-hmm.
she has a sort of epiphany. This is so cool. I get the whole house to myself, do whatever I want, whenever I want. Ah, Fran, now I know why you stay single. And she walks off. And Fran's like, yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the freedom. That's why she stays single, clearly. And the
Mm-hmm.
doorbell rings, and Fran says, oh, I'll get it. And in comes Fran. Fran, I got horrible news. And of course, Fran doesn't know what she's there about, but says, "Oh, so my hair guy couldn't see you?" And Val's like, "No, he saw me this morning." And Fran's like, "Oh, isn't he great?" As everyone will recall, we saw Fran's hair guy previously in the
Mhm.
Chatterbox episode. But it's sort of funny that like that was Fran's assumption that her hair guy couldn't see Val, and like that there's clearly no difference between how Val's hair normally looks and how it looks now.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, back to the plot. Um, Val says, "You're not going to believe this. Benny's clam bar burned down." Fran asks, "How?" "A fire," is the response by Val. Um, oh my god, oh my god. Don't panic, don't panic. All we have to do is find a place that's really classy and free tonight that can hold 100 guys and 7 women. And Val looks around at the Sheffield home, like kind of meaningfully, and Fran's like, "No, no, Mr. Sheffield said we cannot have parties here." And Val immediately jumps off the deep end. "We're never gonna meet anybody. We're just gonna die alone," Fran adds. And Maggie chimes in, "Well, actually, Dad said I couldn't have any parties tonight." And there's like a moment pause, and then we cut to the party, which is in the
Mhm.
Sheffield home. Before we get to the party, do you want to add anything, Bernadette?
I do not.
All right, would you like to take us to the party and like
Yes.
what it looks like? And
Yes. So it's later on, obviously. It's playing It's Raining Men, and indeed, there are men everywhere, the living room.
yes.
Um, and so, Fran's there, but Niles is kind of further back near a drink cart, like he's having a blast as well at this point. And Fran's dancing with a guy. And apparently, this guy is into hunting. And so she jokes, "Oh, maybe one day you could get me a chocolate mousse." And the guy kind of stops and he's like, "Mousses aren't chocolate." And
Uh-huh.
she's like, "I know. And she's like, she starts trying to explain. And then she just stops and she's like, "Have you met my friend Val?"
Mm-hmm.
We then see Fran once again dancing with someone. This time, she's telling him, "Oh, I love the way you move." And he compliments her heels. They're very sexy. "Mind if I try them on?"
Mm-hmm.
And then again, "Have you met my friend Val?"
Right.
Then we go to her dancing with someone else. This man has a French accent, but he is kind of letting her know, "Can you believe, this hair is all from a can?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, so natural." And she kind of smears her hand in it so that her fingers kind of smear along down the side of his face. And then she like puts it kind of on above his mouth, kind of, making uh you know it looks did it look like it to you as well? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it did.
Okay, it kind of looks like Hitler's mustache. Have to
And
admit.
hair. Yeah, it a very unattractive look.
And again, after this happens, "Have you met my friend Val?" So poor Val getting like all of the unsavory leftovers. But anyway, we then transition to the last guy who, she's dancing very intimately with, and she loves his hair and,
It
checking
didn't
her
come from a
fingers.
can.
Yeah, she's checking her fingers to make sure there's no residue or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then she notes he hates to hunt, and she asks about "What do you think of my shoes? They look great on you." And she's like, "Dip me."
Mm-hmm.
That he's passed her test. And in fact, at that moment too, Niles goes by with a woman, says, "Don't wait up for me." They're kind of doing, what's the dance move? Um,
I I don't dance, so
yeah, but I mean, it's like
he's
an
holding
opposite.
her like
Yeah, where
kind
their
of like a
arms
tango.
are straight out. Yeah, tango. Yeah.
Oh, cool! I got it right.
Yeah, as they're walking by, "Don't wait up on me." And so then Fran obviously is into this guy, Jeff. And she even said, but they start talking about, he starts inquiring about, "Oh, you must have made a lot of money, charging people." And she's like, "Yeah, I might just have to give up my career as a supermodel." And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Yeah, made a lot of, must have had to spend a lot of money though on your on business license." "Business license? This is just a party." "Oh, Jeff." And he's like, "Oh, Fran, I'm a police officer and you're under arrest." And he pulls aside his jacket to show her that, and she's like, "That was not a pistol."
That
Um,
was a pistol.
oh yeah, that was a pistol, correct. Excuse me. So yeah, she finally thinks she found a guy, and he's actually a cop coming to bust her for this unlicensed party. Do you have anything to
Correct.
add to this scene?
No.
Okay. Will you take us to the next scene then?
So the next scene, we're back to the Sheffield home, and it's the next morning. And Niles comes in, he opens the door, and the house has been trashed. And he's like, uh-oh, somebody's gonna have a hell of a mess to clean up. And then he realizes, there's a pause, and he realizes, damn, it's me.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly thereafter, Fran, like moments after, I should say, Fran comes in, and she's, being walked in by Jeff. Thanks for taking me home and for letting me play with your siren. And he's like, oh, my pleasure. Oh, can I have my handcuffs back? And so she pushes them out of her pocket and hands them to him, and he leaves. And Niles is like, handcuffs, Miss Fine? And Fran tries to explain, he was a cop. I got arrested last night. And Niles is like, really? I was a pirate. I had to walk the plank. And Fran's like, I'm serious. It was horrible. I spent the night in jail. Of course, I did meet a lovely girl named Sparkle Plenty. She charges $20 to come to her party too. And I was like, well, why didn't you call? And she's like, I did, but I guess somebody was too busy shivering his timber. And I
And
think
again, something we would not have picked up on as
correct. Same thing with the handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
And just the role playing in general. And that's when Maggie comes in, and we find out from her that she'd spent the night at Whitney's, and she's like, gee, I left. You guys completely trashed the place. I miss everything. And Fran's like, oh, we gotta hurry up and clean up before my father gets home. I mean, your father. Can you imagine the look on his face? And guess who just walked down the stairs? Maxwell Sheffield. And they turn, they see him, and Fran, all of the cups and debris Fran had picked up go flying. And like everyone thought that they were going to be coming home the next day, but apparently Gracie got sick, so they took an earlier flight. He hands Miss Babcock's blazer to Niles and says, here, do something with this.
Mm-hmm.
Niles does. And it's not what you would expect. It's not like he doesn't clean it. He doesn't bring it to the dry cleaner.
It's something I would expect of him, though.
I mean, fair of him, but
not what Maxwell probably expected of
correct.
him.
Not what a normal butler, I think, would do.
Yes.
He takes it and puts it in the fireplace in the living room and grabs a lighter to start setting it on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we turn back to Maxwell and Maggie and Fran, and Maxwell is explaining that he specifically said no parties. And Fran tries to jump in, let me explain. And he says to Maggie that he's very disappointed. I'm very disappointed in you, Margaret. Oh, no, Mr. Sheffield, this was my party, says Fran. And he doesn't believe it. Nice try, Miss Fine. But even the woman who put a bumper sticker on my limo that says, honk if you're a hunk, wouldn't be stupid enough to throw a party in my absence. And she's like, hey, don't make a rush to judgment. You're dealing with one dumb gal. And he's not buying it. He's not believing her for a second. Your devotion to the children is touching, but don't be ridiculous. If I thought for one moment that it was your party, I'd have to fire you. And Maggie picks up on the seriousness of that threat and says, I threw the party after Fran went out last night. She had nothing to do with this.
Mm-hmm.
And Fran tries to dissuade her, and finally is like, and I suppose you're the one who spilled a bottle of cream rinse on the Persian rug too. And Maggie's like, no. And Fran's like, oh, must have been Niles.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maxwell says to Maggie, I hope this was worth it because you're grounded indefinitely. And he sort of leaves, and Fran and Maggie are talking, and Fran's like, what are you doing? And Maggie's like, Fran, I didn't want you to get fired. I care more about you than I do any concert. And I kind of forgot it was tonight. And so she leaves, and Fran goes to talk to Maxwell, and she says to Niles as she's leaving, can you believe what a mensch that kid turned out to be? I'm not going to let her miss that concert to save my butt. I don't care if he does fire me. Mm-hmm. And then we hear honking outside. She's like, well, meanwhile, that bumper sticker wasn't the stupidest thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to add anything?
Nope.
All right.
Um,
Would you like to take us then to the office?
yeah. So we're in the office. That's where both Fran and Maxwell are, and obviously they've already started, had a conversation where Fran's made clear that it was her, and Maxwell's upset. Like, I told you, no parties, and she's like, well, actually, you said you told Maggie no parties, and he's like, semantics, like, I don't know exactly what he said, but
He
basically he's
says, don't start with the semantics.
yes. And she goes, so now you're firing me because you're anti-semantic?
Yep.
And and he starts talking about like he's concerned because the kids are impressionable, and Fran's kind of trying to defend herself that she is a good role model and stuff, but then in classic style, she has to leave the office because um, I think she has to go to court, right?
Yep.
And she tells Maxwell if a hooker named Sparkle Plenty calls, you know, let her know. I think
Tell
she,
her I'm in court. Do you think
yes,
this is cute enough for an arraignment?
yes, correct. And so she leaves, and Niles comes in, and again, Maxwell's kind of like, I'm starting to believe that hiring a door to door cosmetics saleswoman was not the best idea. And Niles is like, well, your skin has never looked so supple.
Correct.
Um, and and again, uh, Maxwell's very negative at this point regarding like Fran and stuff. And so like Niles is kind of trying to point out the good she's done. The therapist is Gracie's therapist is no longer on speed dial. Brighton stopped wearing those insipid little blazers with the anchor, and then he stops because, of course, Maxwell's wearing a blazer,
Mm-hmm.
um, just like that. And Maxwell continues, like, but they're such at an impressionable age. And Niles reminds him, well, what 16-year-old would, would give up on the concert of her life to save her friend? To kind of point out that Fran obviously means so much if Maggie's willing to give up the concert to try to, keep her from getting fired.
Right.
And Maxwell's still kind of on the fence. He's like, but if I let this go, then I'd have someone working for me that has no respect for my authority and never listens to what I say. And of course, Niles is kind of looking off in the distance, doesn't really answer. And, Niles, oh, sorry, sir, I checked out after I made my point.
Right.
Do you have anything to add to that scene?
No.
Okay, can you take us to court?
Sure. So we see a picture of a courthouse, which we'll talk about in our notable New Yorker segment. And then we're in the courtroom, and there's a judge who calls the case, the state versus Fran Fine. And Fran's there, and he's like, do you have your attorney present? Oh, my attorney present. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to get him anything. Let's see how he does first.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't understand that he's asking if her attorney is present in the courtroom. She thinks
Yes.
present to be given to the attorney.
Yes.
And the judge turns to the bailiff and is like, is this a competency hearing?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Fran says to Val, meanwhile, what's the use of having a lawyer for an uncle if he's a no-show? Well, is he any good? And Fran's like, well, he worked for some pretty good law firms, Freeburg, Freeman, and Free for the Family. He's strictly pro bono. And Val's like, well, I'm glad he's not representing me because I'm strictly pro share.
Mm-hmm.
Not exactly what Fran meant, but okay. So at that
Mm-hmm.
moment, a guy comes in and he says, hold it, hold it. I object. I object. And the judge says, you object to what? And the guy says, to those electric doors in the men's room. And does this little shudder. And the judge is like, that's the elevator. The guy pauses a moment, looks around, and says, use the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So we clearly this is Uncle Manny. And he starts saying, my client has been unjustly accused. And I say, wait, which one is my client? Oh, that's me, Yetta's granddaughter. Oh, Yetta's granddaughter. Who's Yetta? I'm your great niece. I spoke to you last night. I'm Sylvia Fine's daughter. Yeah. Oh, the one who's not married that
Mhm.
you remember, of course.
Mhm.
Um, so he asks what the charges are, and the judge explains conducting business in a residential neighborhood without a franchise tax license, a city business license, or a liquor license. And Manny sort of launches a little bit. Wow, you're going to need a lawyer. You're a lawyer. Well, then you're in luck.
Mhm.
And he kind of like looks at her and says, isn't that skirt a little snug? Well, maybe just a little. And so Manny says to the judge, the skirt is snug. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
Mhm.
That's my defense, says Fran. Oi, I'm going to jail. And she turns to the
Mhm.
judge. Do I get conjugal visits? Sure. Oh, all right. Put me down for 6 years. Oh, what am I saying? Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. And she like looks over at Manny, who has sat down and is now sleeping, and she says, "I'm sorry, Your Honor. I think the defense is resting."
Mhm.
And the judge is like, "Would you just like to plead?" And she's like, "Yes, I would." And she like throws herself on the ground on her knees, and she's like up against like where the judge is sitting, and she's like, "Oh, please don't send me to jail." Um,
Mhm.
and just when we think things can't go off the rails anymore, Maxwell steps in and he asks to approach the court, approach the bench. And the judge has realized that he's lost all semblance of decorum, all semblance of control over his courtroom. And he says, "Come on down." And so Maxwell, as part of as Fran puts it later, the dream team,
Mhm.
says, "Your Honor, this woman works for me. The party was held in my home. While I've never known her to knowingly break the law, except for the free pay per view, but everyone smears the cable man, right?" And the judge just kind of looks at him, and Fran tells Maxwell to sit down with the rest of the dream team.
Mhm.
The judge apparently did listen to what he said and says, "Mr. Sheffield, the party was in your house, then you are responsible for the party. I'm fining you $500." And he turns to Fran, "And you are free to go." And he looks at his watch, and thank God, so am I.
Mhm.
Um, and so everyone starts getting ready to leave, and Maxwell communicates to Fran that he's not going to pay the fine. And Fran's like, "Oh, you're going to fight the system? What a turn on!" And
Mhm.
he's like, "No, you're paying it." She's like, "Oh, what a turn off." He tells
Mhm.
her from her salary. She's like, "Oh, so does that mean you're not going to fire me?" He's like, "No, but since you acted like a bloody teenager, you're grounded." She's like, "Grounded? I'm a grown woman. Why don't you just put me over your knee and spank me?" Oh, what do you know? We're back to turn on.
Mhm.
And that's the end of the scene. Do you want to add anything, Bernadette?
Nope, you got it.
Thank you.
Um,
Would you like to take us? Go
yes,
ahead.
to the credit scene.
Yes,
For the first time in a while, we actually do have a scene in the credits. And actually there's like a voiceover from Fran, like, wait a minute, I'll be back with a surprise or something like that. Uh,
exactly.
So it's in the courtroom. Uncle Manny's sitting next or is next to Val, and Manny's complimenting, Val's fabulous. He says that she looks fabulous in her dress. She's like, "Oh, thank you." And then he goes, "Can I try it on?" Um, and
And
that's it. That was a
and
very quick
how does
credit.
Val react to that?
Uh, I mean, she just kind of like raises her eyebrows, kind of, right?
She looks a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that is the episode.
That
Um,
is.
did you have anything you wanted to talk about before we got into shticks?
Um, I'm just gonna say, well, I do think Fran throwing the party in the Sheffield home was definitely poor judgment.
Mhm.
But I also do wonder how they were able to communicate to the 100 men and 7 women that quickly that the
Yeah.
location had moved.
Yes. And I was curious too how the cop knew about it. Um,
Yeah,
because again, I would imagine, and we can talk about this more, but it's easier to spread that something's happening. Um, whereas like he must have been like just in that happened to be in that same kind of group of friends or something like that that would have found out about it. Unless he was just totally lucky when he
right.
found out.
Or someone tipped him off. I don't know. It seems weird.
Yeah.
You're right. Like that seems odd, but definitely a necessary plot point.
Mhm. Oh yeah. Yep. Um now I I didn't know if you had anything else.
No, I was going to say, do you want to jump into favorite and not so favorite fashion?
Yes. So with favorite fashion and not so favorite fashion, there was an outfit I really did not like.
Which one?
The one that she's wearing, I'm trying to remember which scene it was. I think when they're like planning the party.
Oh, is it the white button-down shirt that's tied in the front with the blue pants that have clouds on them?
No. It's the one where she has like a um jean skirt and then the top reminded
Oh,
me of
yeah. So it's
spider.
like a blue tight skirt. I didn't think it was jean, but it could have been. And then it's like a tight long sleeve blouse that's like kind of, was it orange or like red
It had different colors on it and there
and
were
had
like
dots
circles.
on it?
Yeah, but like not the same size. It wasn't like a polka dot. Um, it almost again kind of made me think of like it doesn't look exactly like Spider-Man's like top, but like kind of reminded me a bit of it. Um, I didn't think it was very flattering. Um,
I agree.
so now the other thing I just want to talk about is that she's wearing a zebra pattern dress at the party. And
Yes.
I thought for sure that when she was talking with the first guy about how he liked to hunt, that they would make some type of joke related to her dress. Um, they did not.
They
They
did
just
not know.
loose.
Did you like her party dress?
Like again, I think she pulls it off, but it's not something I could ever wear.
Fair.
What about you?
I do like it. I have a dress similar to it. It's not exactly a zebra print, but it is a white dress with like black crisscrossing lines, and it does make me think of her party dress. So,
Mhm.
um,
Yep.
I
So,
really did not like what she wore in court. She
oh
was
yeah.
wearing a green matching suit of skirt and jacket, and to me, she looks like a cucumber or a pickle. Um, and she's like, "Do you think this is appropriate? Like, do you think this is cute enough for an arraignment?" Ah,
Mm,
I don't know. I mean, I maybe if the
seems like
judge
you're in
likes. Yeah, exactly. She's in a pickle. Thank you. Thank you. I knew there was some reason that it was sticking with me. Um, what did you think of the white shirt with the blue cloud pants?
So, um, I didn't mind it. Like I could not wear that. I definitely like the top more than like the bottom.
Mhm.
What did you think?
I like it. I'm not sure I would wear it, but I
Yeah.
do like it. I know
Mhm.
I've definitely, over the course of my life, I've definitely worn shirts tied like that, probably
Mhm.
because I grew up watching The Nanny and thought that was what people did.
Mhm.
Um, the pants, I like them together. I would not, otherwise there's nothing to wear with those pants.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, cuz like you kind of need that the simplicity of the top
exactly.
with
And
the pants.
the whiteness to tie in with the clouds. It's a very
Yeah.
unique look,
Yes.
as usual.
Mhm.
Was there any other fashion you want to talk about?
Not particularly. Did you have anything else?
No, that's all I had. Would you like to start us off with some notable New Yorkers?
Yeah, so obviously in the first scene, the British are coming. Again, was not expecting them to take the famous saying from Paul Revere to use in that context.
Hmm. Although apparently, according to history.com, he never actually shouted that.
Yeah, yeah. But, I don't know if when you were in like elementary school, you had to memorize the first stanza of that poem.
We did
Like,
not.
listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. And it continues.
I'm so
You know,
proud of you
the
for
land is
remembering
so
that.
happy,
I'm like
and I am
so
come, so
impressed.
it shall be. Ready to ride and spread the alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, for the country folk to be up and to arm. But yeah, anyway, like we had
I'm
to
so
memorize
impressed
in
right now.
elementary school. Huh?
I'm so impressed right now. We definitely read that poem. We did not have to memorize it.
Yeah, no, there's like that was definitely one of them. And yeah, so Anyway, that was an interesting twist to a classic.
Yes, that's putting it nicely. And definitely putting it in a way that children would not understand what
Exactly. Okay.
exactly.
So I don't know if you had anything else before Harold and Maude.
I did.
Okay,
The
what?
Salem witch trials.
Oh, yes, 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 of course.
So the Salem witch trials were famous prosecutions of over 200 people who were accused of witchcraft between February 1692 and May 1693 in Massachusetts, which resulted in 30 guilty verdicts and 19 executions. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia. I could have given you a less detailed summary, but I figured having the dates was helpful. According to the New York, as seen in a recent New York Times article, the last of the witches was exonerated 329 years after the conviction. So
Mm,
that, yeah, then I think we're up to Harold and Maude.
yes. Would you? So, like, I guess, do you want to explain it first?
Sure. So it was a 1971 dark comedy about a young man named Harold who rejected the life his mother planned for him and ends up developing a romantic relationship with Maud, a 79-year-old woman who teaches him to live life to the fullest. And that's
Yeah.
according also to our friends at Wikipedia.
Yeah, because he was like obsessed with death and like staged different like pseudo suicidal scenes for his mom to like walk in on and stuff, I believe. Um,
That, that
I,
sounds right.
I I've actually seen this movie.
I have not.
I
Um,
watched it in high school, not
for what
in
purpose? Oh, okay.
at a friend's house
Okay. I was like, what class
while
was he
I was in
showing
high
this?
school. But yes, not at the high school.
Okay.
But yeah, and then obviously there's a reference to Batman
Yep.
when she talks about Batman's pajamas. I don't think we have to explain Batman.
I don't think so.
Okay. Um, now I think it's like I'm pretty sure Benny's Clam Bar is just made up for the show. So we then have Nine Inch Nails, which is an actual band.
Yes, it is. Nine Inch Nails is an American rock band from Cleveland that formed in 1988. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Yes. And again, we have another Barbara Streisand reference.
Correct.
I think there's no need to explain who she is at this point in
I
this.
agree. You can listen to any of our previous podcasts.
Yes. Again, I kind of wished we had kept track of how many. I don't know though. Like you keep probably clearer documentation of notes. How many
Um,
times it shows up in your notable New Yorker section?
very
But anyway,
frequently. Um,
she and Andrew Lloyd Webber.
yes,
Although we didn't have one of him this week.
we did not.
Yes.
I'm gonna just interject briefly.
Mhm.
I also assumed that Lenny's Clam Bar was made up, but there is actually a Lenny's Clam Bar,
Oh,
which
really?
opened in 1974. It's called
I
Lenny's
thought it was
Clam.
Benny.
Oh, you're right. It was Benny's. I don't know why this showed up. It could have been a parody of Lenny's. Never mind.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Never mind. I don't. You're right. It was Benny's Clam Bar. I was so excited. I found something, but no, there's a Benny's Clam Shack, but not
Mhm.
anyway. All right, continue. I'll stop
I-
interjecting.
As a side note, I do think I did find funny the exchange, that Benny's clam bar burned down. How? A fire.
Uh-huh.
But, yes, obviously.
Exactly.
So again, when the scene opens for the party, they're playing "It's Raining Men."
hmm That was a song by the Weather Girls that was on their 1983 album Success. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
hmm Again, there's a visual reference to Hitler.
Yeah, we're
So,
not giving him airtime.
nope. Um, and then let's see here.
The courthouse, I think, is the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
There
Explain.
there weren't as many notable New Yorkers in this episode as we usually have.
Yeah, I agree.
So there's that very quick like transition scene of a picture of the courthouse. And I'm fairly certain that is actually the Southern District of New York, not a state court. So like that would
Okay.
be a federal court. And Fun fact, the Southern District of New York has the nickname the Mother Court. It is the oldest federal court in the United States. It predates the United States Supreme Court by approximately 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
it's a, as they say, it's a special courthouse.
Hmm. Now, I was a little bad this week. I did not look up. Did you look up the actor who played Uncle Manny?
I did. I also looked up the actors who played Jeff and the judge.
Okay. Can you enlighten
Sure.
us?
So I guess let's start with Jeff, who I guess probably came before the courthouse. Sorry. Jeff is played by Kane Picoy, who's I think best known for his role on Beverly Hills 90210.
Hmm.
Um, Milton Berle played Uncle Manny. He was on shows such as The Love Boat, The Lucy Show, I Dream of Jeannie, That Girl, Mod Squad, Chips, Burke's Law, and The Fresh Prince of Bel Air. He's been on a ton of
Wow.
things.
Hmm.
Both of those are from our friends at IMDb. And then the judge was played by Alan Rich, who, according also to our friends at IMDb, has played a judge on many other television shows. He appeared on Golden Girls, The New Scooby-Doo Mysteries, Hill Street Blues, and apparently he died at the age of 19 of at
19.
yeah, no, died at the age of 94 back in 2020. Um, he has also been on The Nanny previously, for those who are paying very close attention. He previously played Polly the pawnbroker in the Christmas episode in season
Oh.
1.
Hmm.
And he will play Uncle Ray in the episode from Flushing with Love,
Hmm.
which I believe is in season 5.
Interesting.
So,
So whenever Fran's talking about her uncle, first of all, I didn't know if the Freeburg Freeman or actual, like, if there was an actual law firm with that. But she goes on to say, well, he's strictly pro bono. And Val in response says, well, it's a good thing he's not representing me because I'm pro share. So again, another reference, because I believe the show has referenced Sonny and Cher before.
yes.
But also, yes, that was definitely not what Fran was talking about, because pro bono means that like you're doing it for free, not that you're pro Sonny Bono.
Right. It's for like the good of society.
Yes, for the good. Okay. Did you have anything else?
No,
Yeah.
it was a much shorter
What
list than
stuff?
usual. So
Okay, so Yiddishakop, there was some stuff.
we did have a couple things. So I think we're gonna start with there's that scene where they're looking at the RSVPs and Maggie says, "Oh no, he's looking for a Catholic girl," and Friend's like, "Oh great, he's Jewish."
Hmm.
So I think what I think this is a reference to, I couldn't find anything specific, but I think this is a reference to what some in the Jewish community call the interfaith marriage problem. Um, so a lot of uh, especially Reform Jews have been marrying non-Jews.
Hmm.
And I found this article on 18doors.org, and they said, and I quote, "When Jews have interfaith marriages, they disproportionately marry Catholics." And they point to the US Religion Landscape Survey, which found that 39% of Jews who married out married Catholics,
Hmm.
23% married Protestants. And this article I was reading hypothesized that it might be because of geography, since Jews and Catholics are both concentrated in the Northeast.
That's
And
interesting.
when you're gonna marry, you're only gonna marry someone like you've met, right? You're gonna pick your partner from the
Presumably.
pool, presumably. Fair. Presumably, you're going to pick your partner from the pool of people you've met,
Mhm.
and where there are higher proportions of these groups. That's where intermarriage comes in. So
You know what's funny though
what?
is that I have one of my mom's cousins who's from a Catholic family, so Catholic, married a Jewish woman, but in the South.
I guess religious minorities just like flock together.
Yeah.
Like we're all sort of outsiders.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's what she was referencing. Um, in at the party, there's the first guy who says that he likes to do some hunting in his free time, and Fran jokingly says, "Maybe you could bag me a chocolate mousse." And then she when he doesn't get the joke, she quickly hands him over to Val. I just want to point out that hunting is not a stereotypically Jewish activity. Like Jews typically don't hunt, and that's primarily because kashrut requires ritual slaughter of land animals. That's called shahida, and hunting does not fit that bill. Also, I mean, Judaism prohibits things like unnecessary cruelty and causing unnecessary pain to animals. So it's just not something that Jews do culturally. And I did find an article by Jewish Insider, which confirmed my gut reaction to that.
Mm-hmm.
Fran calls Maggie a mensch.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically a good person, like a upstanding, wonderful person. And then lastly, in the office scene where Fran accuses Maxwell of being anti-Semitic,
Mm-hmm.
she probably meant anti-Semitic,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically being prejudiced against Jews. And according to our friends at Idiom, I'm totally going to mispronounce this, so I apologize. There's an online etymology dictionary which explains that anti-Semitism actually comes from the German. It comes from the Germanic languages. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's everything today, Miss.
So in the court scene, doesn't Maxwell say like everyone smears the
Oh yeah, well we've used the word schmear previously. It's to spread.
Yep.
He's using it sort of funny.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't usually use it that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it didn't quite. Everyone smears
The
the
cable
cable
guy.
guy. Like what?
Yeah, so I mean it's like to spread or to smear.
Yeah.
It's or according to dictionary.com, um it's kind of funny. So according to dictionary.com, the first uh definition is as a noun, which is like, and I quote, a dab as of cream cheese spread on a roll, bagel, or the like, which is the way I would typically use schmear. I'm smearing my cream cheese on my bagel because it's yummy. But then they use it as the second, like the fourth and fifth definitions use it as a verb, including to spread or smear, and then the last one is to bribe. So not really, not common usage is my reaction.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So then 90s nostalgia.
old cars,
Yes.
including an old taxi, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, it doesn't quite, this is kind of, we pointed out before, it doesn't quite make sense that all of those people would have known about the change in venue
Mm-hmm.
so quickly. And again, these days you'd imagine there would be some type of social media post and stuff, or
Or a
like
group
maybe,
text or
or like
something.
an Eventbrite event where they pay online. They don't actually have to physically bring it.
Right. I agree. Cece's comment about how she's going to get a wax, I mean, fax,
Mm-hmm.
that seems sort of dated. Also, query why, if there was a fax she needed, why it wouldn't just be faxed to the house.
Mm-hmm.
Since I believe we know from previous episodes that previous episode where Maxwell was, number 3 eligible bachelor. Women were faxing him their resumes, faxing him letters about what they wanted that they wanted to marry him and have his children, et cetera, et cetera. So like
Mm-hmm.
clearly there's a fax machine in the house. Also dated.
Mm-hmm.
Your turn.
Um, I don't really have much.
That's fair. I have one other.
Okay.
It was in the courtroom scene. I don't know if you noticed this, but like near where I guess the court reporter was, there was this really big old looking computer with this like
Oh,
giant monitor.
yeah.
It just was huge. Um, so I just wanted to mention that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't really like I can't really think of anything that really sticks out to me.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So I guess future fun.
Yes.
All right, I only have a couple things for you this week. First, we're gonna see our friend Jeff again. in 2 more episodes. First, we're going to see him in the episode Love is a Many Blundered Thing. He's one of 2, count them, 1, 2 Valentine's Day dates for Fran. And unfortunately, he's the one who kind of gets the short end of the stick because she thinks she's going on a date with Maxwell. We'll see what happens. And then he also appears in the episode Fransom when Fran, Val, and Chester are all kidnapped.
Wow.
So,
and he remains a cop, like he's consistently
he's
Jeff?
he's Jeff. He's the cop. Yeah. So also, this is not the only legal themed episode. In season 4, the title is Samson, He Denied Her. Cece and Fran end up sitting on the same jury. That one's fun. And then the last is a very, very nitpicky comment. But for those who have seen the show before, they will appreciate it. Fran makes the comment to Maxwell, hey, don't make a rush to judgment. To me, that's sort of foreshadowing the episode in season 5 called A Rash to Judgment. Which, if you've seen the series before, you will remember because Fran eats something that she's allergic to, gets a huge rash, gets a shot of prednisone, I think, or cortisone, and has a negative reaction, shall we say. So I will, for those who have not seen the episode, I don't want to ruin the ambiance. So I'll stop talking now. So yeah, that's what we have. We have that.
Ratings.
Yeah.
I thought of something.
I love it when you think of things.
Well, okay. So we established that it was $20 a head, right?
Yep.
And I would presume that Val and Fran, though, did not have to pay.
That sounds fair.
So we have about 105 participants then, right? Because there are 2 of the 7 women.
Yeah.
So if you multiply 105 by $20, she made $2,100. So she can easily pay back that $500 fine and still come out winning.
Correct. That's fair. And even assuming she had to, buy some like chips and dip and some of the alcohol, like, yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. So anyway, sorry, I just like randomly thought about that.
Fair. I think that it's time to rate the episode.
Yes, and it's my turn this week to go first.
I love when it's your turn.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure.
I know.
Because again, there were a couple of things that I was just like, did not really like the split second comparison of Harold and Maude with Fran and Brighton. Also some of the other, like, yeah, there's some other things. But anyway, so I don't know. Okay. I'll just give it a 4.
Okay.
Because I am torn, so I can always change it later. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, this is not my favorite episode. I don't hate it. I don't love it as much as like some of the episodes we've seen previously or are about to see in the coming weeks. It's a fine episode. I enjoy watching it for the most part. It's funny. There's some things that just like don't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like why they would show the Southern District of New York instead of a state court. Like I don't know. IMDb had like a thing and they're like trivia for this episode, and that was the comment. Like it doesn't make sense. Why would you? It doesn't make sense. But it is fun, right? Like it is amusing, particularly the shouting the British are coming line.
Yeah. The Niall Cece interactions.
Yes. And the Niall Cece's blazer interactions.
Yep. That poor blazer.
I know. It did nothing wrong. It just probably got vomited on and then burned.
Yes.
I'm also going to give it a 4 because I think that's what my gut is telling me. So
fair enough.
Yeah, we can always, as you said, we can always change it later. We make the rules. It's fun.
So is there any final comments or thoughts on this particular episode?
I don't think so. Do you have any?
I don't think so either.
All right. Well, That's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. Join us next week when we'll be discussing episode 57, The Two Mrs. Sheffields.
If you'd like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.